So if you're here, you must be wondering, what the frick is MVC? What does it do? Why do I need it? Why is it gonna help me? How's it gonna do anything? Well, MVC is a coding paradigm, or a way to organize our code so that other devs can read it and not make fun of us anymore. MVC stands for Model View Controller. Now, as we can see with Gandalf here, we're breaking up our code into 3 different main sections, and that code is going to stay where it is and only interact with the controller. So here Gandalf's going to be making a request to his computer, and our app is going to send that data to its controller, the data from the request. Now the controller is going to then ask for certain stuff from the model, who's going to gather our info from our database, and then the model is going to parse that info, return it to the controller, and the controller is going to convert that and send it over to our view so that Gandalf can get his posts and update them or whatnot. The controller is our section of our code and our app that controls pretty much everything in the app. It's going to be our God Emperor. It interacts with the user. It takes our user requests and processes them as server requests, usually CRUD. It handles all of our server-side logic and is just going to be a supreme ruler of the app. It's always going to be our middleman, and it's going to process the info, talk to our model to get it from the DB if we need data from them. And again, it's going to parse all of the things we need and bring it back to the view so that our user can see it. The view is pretty isolated in the sense that it only listens to the user and it sends requests to the controller. It parses all of our HTML and CSS. It's the only thing the user is going to see, the only thing. And it only speaks with the controller and must never look at or speak to the model, just like in Hollywood. So now here we have our beautiful model, and this is the section of the code that listens to our controller for data requests, and then it's going to accept that request and it's going to go speak to our database using a schema most of the time. It passes that data back from our model, from the database, through the model back to the controller so that the controller can feed it to the view, and it does not interact with the view. Never. Now on that last page, you must have seen a big red word called schema. You must be wondering, fellow programmer, what is a schema? Well, a schema is like a blueprint. It's usually an object template containing key value pairs. It's going to take our data and it's going to put it into a form that pretty much everyone can read, and that includes not only our browser, not only our database, but also other devs. This makes our data look less stinky, and it allows other devs to understand what our data is being passed is, and better organize how to use the data. And they don't need to see the database to do that. It's kind of like Mad Libs for data, where you're plugging in the basics of what you need. A little bit of, I think is that abstraction? I don't know. Leon's going to have to double check for that one. But schemas are usually utilized by Mongoose and SQL, and they're helpful so that it lets the browser know what our data looks like. It lets the database know what data it's allowed to take and what it should reject, and pretty much just cleans everything up data-wise. And finally, we have the last piece in our MVC, although he's not spoken about in the acronym. And yeah, it's our database. It's our dad bucket. He takes care of our data and makes sure everything stays in line. He listens to our model and gives or takes the data that she asks for. He's pretty much a slave to the model in the MVC universe. And you must be wondering too, fellow programmer, how is this all connected? How do they know how to talk to each other? How does the model listen to the controller? How does the controller listen to the view? Well, it's all connected through things called routers. And routers are specific functions that we build to make it easier for these different sections of MVC codes to interact with each other. Routers allow us to import and export functions and data to pass them around between the controller and to its buddies. And they pretty much keep our lines clean and open so that we can change stuff without worrying about how the connections between our different sections are being affected. They're a lot like old-timey call centers where old phone operators would plug phone lines into different ports. So based off of user interaction and the way that the app is connected, the controller can connect those ports to better access the view or the model as needed. The routes are always open and they're always listening. Always listening. And finally, to wrap it all up, you must have heard me say mongoose earlier and wondered what that is, curious programmer. Mongoose is an object data modeling library for MongoDB and Node.js. It is not Mongo CLI, our command line interface. It's just mongoose. It allows us to organize our data better by applying those schemas to our raw data. And it has nice keywords to automate certain processes for our model to make it easier to connect to the database and to manipulate data being passed to and extracted from that database. Makes it all prettier, and it kind of replaces Mongo CLI based off of what you're trying to do. And if you're going to utilize Mongoose, you're always going to need a schema. A schema is a big part of Mongoose. So hopefully that clears everything up, and that you better understand MVC. And now, using this paradigm, people can stop making fun of your code.